some claim the stud was phenomenal.
The stud.
And some claim it's all crushed.
Okay, I have 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome everyone here this evening. It's beautiful out. That's an encouraging sign for spring. Brad will be just a few minutes late. He had to work at 12 today. So, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown? Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Basic?
Here.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde? Here.
Okay, in front of you, you have the February 28th, 22 minutes. If you would please look over those, and we will need to approve them.
I make a motion to pass February 28th council minutes.
A second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll in.
Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Basic?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde? Yes.
And you also have the February 22 bank reconciliation. Back a little ways. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve the bank reconciliation.
Second. Any discussion or questions for Melissa? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Fasig?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde?
Yes. You also have the paid vouchers for February 22nd, 22. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the vouchers for February 28th. That we said the date on here? Okay.
I'll second that.
Any questions or discussion? Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Fasig?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde? Yes.
And we have the gas and the ERU receipts. I believe they are even further to the back. As you notice, we are getting additional heat payments. Is there a motion to pass the gas and ERU receipts?
Make a motion to pass the February 2022 gas and ERU receipt.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussions? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fasig?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde? Yes.
Okay, at this time, Garrett
Yes.
and Chuck are up.
Yeah.
As you recall, we had planned on having information on a master plan along with what was going to happen for some of our reconstruction, and then it was all virtual, so we're glad to have you here tonight, Garrett.
Thank you.
And Chuck.
Thanks.
So,
I think Chuck's gonna do his first.
Well, yeah, first of all, it's good to be back and do this. I don't know if you all know, I am your
the village representative on the board of the Northwest Water District. I'm here because I need your vote in November. My term comes up, so I'd love to have your support, your nomination, your vote. But I'm also here because I have a lot of history with this. I am the one that got us into this contract, so if you're not happy with it, you can ask me, and I think I can tell you exactly why we got into it. I think as you go through this, you'll I think you'll have a better understanding. But with that, I'll turn it over to really the boss, the guy that knows what's going on. I'll let Garrett talk.
Well, thank you, Chuck. As I said, I'm Garrett Chamberlain, for those of you that haven't met. I'm the assistant engineer with Northwestern Water and Sewer District, and we're mainly here to talk about the master plan. So every 5 or 6 years, we update our master plan. What that means is we have a huge stack of documents, all electronic now, that tell all kinds of different things about the system, pipes, pumps, contracts, things like that. And so we're going through all that, and we like to get our member input. So if you guys have anything, we'd like to take that back and incorporate that. And the last time it was done, Macomb wasn't even a member of the district. So it's good. We're going to be adding all the information that we've accumulated since you guys have joined the district. But thanks for having us on this beautiful day, as Kathy said. I want this to be informal, so if I say anything or I don't speak loud enough, just yell at me and interrupt me. It doesn't have to be me just presenting to you. I appreciate feedback as well. So as I mentioned, the master plan, it lays out a planning for short and long-term needs of the community. So it has maps and tables and charts with immediate recommendations for lines. So if there's an area where we know there's going to be some growth, we may show that an improvement necessary to serve that growth could be a 12-inch water line extension across that mile stretch or so. It's a guide though, because depending on what kind of development we may get, the lines may have to be larger or smaller, depending on, case in point, we had a large development in the northern area of the district that wanted 1.2 million gallons a day of water flow. The normal 8-inch line would be heavily taxed to supply that, so we had to change the plan and increase it to I think we did a 16-inch just for future growth beyond that property. So that's kind of the things that are in there. But like I said, it's also a guide for efficient and cost-effective, so we don't want to be building things that are overly sized. So we do analyze potential development area, but also try to keep it within reason for cost efficiencies for all of our members as well.
Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we just had a good example of that. We just had a project. What was that for? Is it the Ford Road project? The
pump station.
The pump station, and the engineers came to the board. It was over $6 million, and the board kind of said no. And they went back and engineered the one that said now $4.6 million. So that's just an example of those guys being very cost effective and doing it right.
But like I said, it shows various pump sizes that we currently have and what we anticipate going into the future. Contract limits, so a lot of our agreements are with other communities, so we buy water and pay for sewage treatment in a lot of our systems. So we have to keep a good record of what those contracts amounts are, because again, if another 1 million gallon a day user comes in, we have to make sure we're still within our contract limits, or we have to go back and renegotiate those things. So a lot of the different subjects though are also like community and surrounding area water and sewer issues and needs. Big one in all Northwest Ohio is affordable housing. I'm so sure it's just the same down here in Macomb, but we've had some residential development in the north, and we make sure we're always accommodating that where needed. And we try to, you'll see farther in here, incorporate planning and zoning requirements to help guide our intended growth as well. So if you have zoning or planning things that you want us to make sure that we're accounting for, we need to know that so we can plan accordingly. We also want to make sure that we accommodate small businesses. We don't want improvements that are unreasonable, unaffordable for any small businesses. So those are another consideration that we take into. Development is one of the major things we look for though, and around here, there's a potential subdivision. I know you guys have probably been discussing in the southeast corner there off of Marymount. So we're potentially considering whatever we'll incorporate for that. Initially, it looks like we'll have to be adjusting things a little bit to accommodate it, but we do know what we'll have to do there. Another nearby would be the CSX facility on 18 outside North Baltimore. That's one of our service areas. It's in our service area as well. It's also labeled North Point or UPS, however you want to call that facility. You'll probably notice there hasn't been really a whole lot of activity there lately. The last update we received was they were waiting shipment of the equipment to actually outfit the building, so that's why there hasn't been a whole lot going on. But all those are employment opportunities, which again go back to the residential needs. And the North Point area is interesting. In the master plan, there'll be a note. We'll probably be able to, with the regional line that we're going to run to Macomb, be able to construct a loop to tie that system into our other system that exists there currently today, and either be an emergency connection or a second feed if so needed. So that'll be listed in the master plan, this update. A little bit about Macomb itself. So I got past, present, and future projects. The third page in your handouts there is the current projects or totals that we've spent since the community has joined the district. So the total there is $21.6 million in capital improvement projects that we've either accomplished or have planned to do in the next year or two. The ones highlighted are either ongoing or upcoming. So the big one would be the regional water line connection there at 66. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the community here, as far as sanitary sewer treatment, we constructed the new oxidation dish treatment plant here in 18 and 19 to a tune of $7.2 million. It's running really well. I don't believe we've had a single overflow or untreated event since it's been constructed. It actually is designed for 300,000 gallons a day. And there was one rain event where we put 3 million through it. So normally they're rated for 3 times, so 900,000 would be the max that we went through it. But due to the plant being pretty much redundant, it was able to significantly greater. And then the fact that it's stormwater, you have nearly less or a lot less material that has to be treated, so the effluent stayed within limits.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so you guys know, back a few years ago, the village was under a EPA, I call it a compliance plan, a correction of action plan. Part of that was the new sanitary treatment plan. And I will tell you, at the time, the progress the village was making on that was basically nil. We would never have got a new plant. I'm just saying, but the district, with all their expertise, connections, they were able to get the USDA grant.
Yep.
And get that thing built. So they did a really nice job. Something the village could not have done on their own.
The village was making progress. They had design nearly complete when he joined, and then there just wasn't, like you said, as far as we could tell, progression into the funding source of it and then the contracting. We took it from there. We modified the design a little bit to accommodate a lot of our SCADA communications. We try to do as much remote operation as possible to keep costs low. So there's more automation in the plant than I think was originally thought of when the village was doing it. But it's essentially the same plant as what was originally planned. But the benefit that the village saw when they joined the district, the big benefit is it wasn't just the 600 people or 600 customers in Macomb funding that project now. It was the total 20,000 customers that the district serves. So the assessments that you are, or the debt charges that you're seeing on your bills are not the full cost of the project. We did incorporate some of that into the entire customer base, because when you did join, you did have a plant. So whether it was outdated or unable to be rehabbed, we tried to consider it was not in your control. So being a member, you get the benefit of having 20,000 customers. So we spread the cost across everybody to help out with that.
And you know what he's talking about. The extra $10 or what? I think it's $10 a month we get charged. That would
$10.25 or
yeah, $10.25. I mean, you go figure 20,000 and divide that by only 600. You can imagine what that would have been. And in addition, the district put in $2.5 million of their own money towards that project.
Yeah, so that's maybe the fourth line item on the third page sheet again. Said that was $7.2 million was the construction of the wastewater treatment plant. Let's see. So, on to the collection system. So far, since the village has joined, we've been in the process of slowly repairing, replacing the collection system. Currently up to date, we've spent $2.1 million in 4 projects. Those are the other previous projects. And then there's $1 million budgeted yet for this year. That project is focused more towards the northwestern quadrant, or so a little bit in the southwest quadrant of town. It's currently under design. We'll hopefully be bidding in the second quarter, but we will be coming and meeting with Greg once the drawings are ready to coordinate effort with you guys. So we make sure we don't tear up a new road and not put it back the way you guys would like, things like that. Again, those aren't really master plan things, but that's just kind of a progress update. As Kathy mentioned, we want to give you a little bit of update about things. The water treatment system. So when you joined, you had the Macomb Water Treatment Plant. We now took operation of that. Chuck can add, but when it was taken over, it was partially in the middle of a press nightmare with orange or brown water that luckily we were able to turn that around, get the license from yellow, or
It was yellow.
Yellow
Which
with
basically meant we were close to having that plant closed down. And I'll just be honest with you guys, because Garrett won't tell you, but I will. That brown water was an operational issue. It was not a plan issue. So just keep that in mind, that they came in and took over the operations of that, and we haven't had brown water since. I don't think we will.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We get we do analytics on the water all the time, and the levels of manganese is what the ultimate cause of that is. The manganese that's in the reservoir and the water that we pump into the reservoir. The levels do occasionally creep up. We do additional chemical feed to compensate that. Luckily, we've not had any instance that I'm aware of where the actual color came back, but the manganese levels do fluctuate during the certain times of the year when the reservoirs change their operating conditions. So it's a multi-tech treatment system. So for those who don't know, that was a product from Culligan Water. It's a series of 2 trains that have 3 filters in them. They're filled with carbon, and 2 of the projects that were listed in that other sheet were the rebedding of those trains. So when we took over, one of our very first projects was the rebedding of one of those trains because it was ultimately barely working. The gallons per cubic foot of media was very low. We managed to rebed it, helped the plant run a lot better, and then over time, and that's a normal maintenance thing, the filter has to be replaced about every 5 years, or the media in the filter. So we took care of the one, and then I think last year we took care of the other train.
And I can't remember. I think we at one time took a loan from Hartside back in brown water days to clean one of the trains, and I think the village has since paid it back. But we didn't have the financial capacity to pay for what was needed.
But given the type of treatment system that it is, there's always concerns for the harmful algal blooms because it has no way of treating for harmful algal blooms, and we do have algae on the reservoirs. We do treat for it, but if it were to make it into the filters in high enough concentration, we wouldn't be able to get it out of the water. Between that and the continuous manganese concerns are part of the reasons why we're looking at the regional waterline discussion or regional waterline project. But I'll give you a little bit of an update on that. We're currently in the process of design and permitting. We've secured all the easements along the route. The main route design is complete. There's some piping and pumping improvements that we're doing in the water plant that will be the last bit of the design that we're going through right now. We've secured USDA loans and grant funding for the project. But the first bullet point there underneath the regional waterline is we recently secured $2.09 million in grant funding from the Ohio Department of Development, the House Bill 168 funds that the state legislature allocated out of their ARPA funds. So the American Rescue Recovery, the state got a huge surplus. I think they put away $250 million into this Ohio Department of Development fund. We nominated that project for funding, and luckily they came through with $2 million of the project. And you'll see the current estimate is $6.6 million, so it's a very significant portion of the project. It was already a reasonably affordable project to begin with, but that made it even better. the current stuff you see in town is the ongoing water main replacement. It helps with failure elimination, so the piece of pipe you see here, that was a recent water leak that we had on Pleasant Street where we're replacing the water line. It's interesting, for those of you who don't see inside of water mains very often, there is usually barnacles or tuberculation buildup on the inside of them. So it's not surprising. We have seen certain places in town here where there is more. We've tested it, and it's a combination of calcium and manganese and other things that have built up inside the pipes. It's not harmful. I would say it's inside your pipe, it's fine. It's just that was cast iron, or not cast iron, ductile iron that just had a rustful leak through, is my understanding. It had to be cut out and repaired. So. But the water line replacements all do basically help eliminate failures, but also improve fire protection. So the Pleasant Street line, Cherry Street obviously feeds off of that. There's a fire hydrant on the end of Cherry Street. Well, the Pleasant Street line is a 4-inch line feeding a 6-inch on Cherry, which feeds a fire hydrant on the end of it. If anybody were to ever connect to that fire hydrant, they would not be able to get adequate flow to run the fire hoses, obviously. So with the new project, we'll be improved. That'll be a new 6-inch on Pleasant, so it should better serve the residents out there if they had any issues. All right, back to master plan stuff. So regional water and sewer issues and needs are things that we accommodate for, both non-residential and residential. But with all the development that we're seeing in the northern area, and then I guess around Finley, they're having several large development things. Creates a lot of jobs, which has a lot of residential need, but non-residential has been the brunt of our development lately, that it actually subsidized our rates. Last year, we were able to have a 0% increase. In 2020, it was a 0% increase because of our non-residential usage continuing to grow. So it's always a benefit for everybody when that happens.
1.8% this year?
I think there's a minimal increase this year.
Yeah. And just on the water bills, so you guys are clear on this, the water bills that you get, or we get, I get, are still under the Macomb water bill system. So when people complain about their bills being high, if you guys are still in control of the water, the bills look just like they do now. So just know that. The district has not went back and put Macomb under the Northwest Water District billing system. Does that make sense? I mean, back in the day when we owned the water, we sit up here and would have meetings and say, okay, we're going to increase the water bill this and that. So that bill is no different today that you're getting than back when the village built. Sarah knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When she built it, those bills have not changed. So they would have been just as high today if the village still controlled the water as they are. That's what you're getting.
And how does that compare to the others in Northwest?
The remaining of the district. Apologize, I'm not in the customer service and rate department, so I'll say the best way I think I've heard it from them was that you are a little bit higher than the remainder of the district, but rather than artificially bring you down, we're letting them come together. So everyone else is coming up to you. Yes, yes, and you were holding. Is my understanding of what they've been doing the last couple of years. So
Thank you.
I can get you a better answer on that if you want, but that's what I believe is the current situation. But it also, the fact that your rates have been where they are has helped us accommodate all these projects as well that we've been doing. We've been able to maintain paying the debt charges, operating the systems with those rates as well. So affordable housing is a big residential thing. So hopefully, if everything goes well with the development out to the southeast, we'll have additional housing, and we'll work with that developer as much as you need us to, or they want us to make sure that they have everything they need for water and sewer needs. Considerations we do like I mentioned before, community zoning or planning concerns. So if you have any zoning or planning issues that we need to be aware of, please share those with us. We'll accommodate those. We want to know if we have any strengths or weaknesses, or you guys have any strengths or weaknesses you want us to make sure, again, we accommodate and plan for. Water and sewer needs for existing development. We're trying to keep up with all the existing development. Obviously, we're replacing and maintaining the lines. But if there's anything that you have concerns with, or any of your customers, I don't know if it's crush proof or Hearthside, or any other community businesses or residential neighborhoods, let us know. We want to make sure we accommodate those. And then again, economic development considerations is one of our major things. So if anybody else were to approach the village, please let us know and send them our way. We are your water and sewer branch. So if you have any water and sewer needs, send
Yeah,
them.
and I'll just add to that, Garrett, just from a board member, I mean, these guys, we just approve this stuff, or disapprove it, but, you know, they just recently, got the $9 million from the Wood County Commissioners, and we're gonna run water and sewer from, I think, Bowling Green clear out to the intersection there where what is that, 596 or whatever that.
582. So
582.
we're going to be
But-
running sewer back to Bowling Green.
Right,
yeah.
just, that's all forward thinking, because they believe that corridor will eventually, grow. So they're doing you know, I guess just look at the.
Planning for the future. So we've had several very successful areas in the system where there's been good commercial or industrial economic growth that has benefited us, like I said, with water usage and sewer usage and all of our customers. And it's a large tract of land that water and sewer was run to with a multi-effort. It was an effort to open up area for development, but also to serve some unsewered community areas that had sewer issues. They were under findings and orders from the Ohio EPA, so we constructed these lines to serve them and then also be set up for development in the future. It's starting to get built out. We've got Peloton, if you've all heard of Peloton, was one of the just about last development acreages available in that area. They still are building, but they're not going to occupy the building, is what we've understood to be now. But with that, completing that area, we're looking for alternative areas. And Wood County Commissioners, as part of the ARPA funds, they received $25 million. And one of the big recommendations for spending of the funds is water and sewer needs. So them being part of the district, Wood County being part of the district, we went to them and said, hey, we need another area for economic development, and we also have a community that has a sewer issue that needs to be resolved. So down by our office, on 582, let's see here. No, we lost. Whatever. By our office on 582 is the unincorporated community of Dunbridge, and it is very close to receiving finding orders. The Ohio EPA has sampled it. They required us to provide a general plan, which basically says it needs sewers. Tell us how you're going to do it. We drew up the general plan. It would never have been affordable. The sewer is closed from that area. Either supposed to go to an on-site system or a nearby new system, or to the city of Bowling Green, which is 6 miles to the south. So we combined the two, the development opportunity with the acreage along the state route, and the sewer needs for the community. We recommended to the county. The county offered us up $9 million of their $25 million to develop the water and sewer lines. So we're very excited about that. It opens up, I think, almost 1,000 acres of acreage that could be different property owners, but there's several of them that are interested in allowing development. So between that and the unsewered need, it's a great benefit for the area and helps us again pick up new customers as that develops. So, bullet number 9. There's a questionnaire. If any of you are interested, I have a web link. I will email to you. I'll give you my cards. If you email me, I'll send you the web link. It's too complicated to be able to put in print or type in yourself, so I have to give it to you electronically. Basically, if you're afraid to say anything in front of us, or if you just want to give us more input, you can easily go on there. It's a Google format questionnaire. Type in anything you want to share with us, your concerns, questions, whatever, and you can press submit. We'll read it. We'll be able to accommodate that as well. Last, not on here, I want to thank you all for hiring Greg. I think we've been doing great communicating. I think things are going well. He's doing a great job. Thanks again, and thanks for having us. And if you have any questions, Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Yep, the last page in the handout. Yep.
Update.
That is the current route from North Baltimore to the community here. So eventually we come down and end up on 613, or no, not 613, come west into town. We'll be crossing underneath the railroad tracks and then connecting into the existing water treatment plant building. We will be maintaining the building because we're still going to be using the clear wells and the pump station that exists in there today. There'll be a follow-up project where we will work through the removal of the old water treatment plant equipment, the turnover of the reservoir equipment, piping. We're going to work through all that, but we will be meeting with you guys to go through all that once we're there. The timeline in here, I think I did put it, we're hoping to be bidding the water line project the second quarter. Hopefully be bidding second quarter of this year is our hope. We're going through, like I said, permitting items right now. USDA has all kinds of fund requirements when you use their funding, and then this Ohio Department of Development funding is all new, so we're working through all the necessary things we have to do to handle that.
And I would just add, for the new council members, they have a whole presentation, if you ever want it, or I don't care, about how they came to the conclusion that they needed, that it was in the best interest of the village to run the line from North Baltimore over here and do that. So you're welcome to that, or Garrett can come back and share it with you, or whatever.
There's a full, probably 50-page document of where we analyzed all the options. Ultimately, a regional option was the best alternative. We looked at 3 different regional options. Just to summarize, one would have been Findlay, the other one was North Baltimore, and the third one was our regional lines that we currently have at CSX. The CSX lines there on 18 are not large enough currently, or there isn't a large enough supply there currently to supply the village, so North Baltimore happens to be the next alternative. Findlay, the options that, or the conversation that happened with Findlay was they wanted ownership all the way pretty much to the corporation limits of the village. We were going to build the whole line and then turn it over to them. Being a regional utility, that doesn't really agree with our board or the operation to pay for I think it was 5 miles of water line and then not get the ownership of it to serve customers.
And I think the other option was actually improving the
Correct, there was an option to improve the
but
plant.
that would have cost the residents much more to do it, to do the upgrades that are needed at the plant because of the EPA requirements. In this study, it goes how much the water bill will go up in each scenario. That was the most expensive scenario, was to improve everything out here.
More than 6.6 million to upgrade that plant?
I apologize, it's been over a year and a half, if not 2 years since we finished that report, but it was expensive, yeah. And again, it's not just the upgrade of it, that there's the long-term cost of operating it as well, and the unknown treatment requirements that could come about. So the initial look at the improvements of the plant was adding at least 1 or 2 multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment to be able to make the existing treatment plant handle harmful algal blooms and handle manganese, and then it wouldn't be a total rehab at that point because you're still using the multi-tech system. Just the combination of all the different options, ultimately the best option was a regional connection.
Like I say, Kyle, we can get you that, because it's a good study, it really was.
I would like to see that too.
Sure.
Or we just, so what we're gonna do is just abandon our current water plant that we have?
The building will stay, but the filter trains and the chemical feed equipment will all be removed, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
there will be nothing in place for backup if anything happens?
there's nothing in place for backup today if something currently happens. No, as of this time, no.
Well, other than, we hope to have a backup for the secondary water, will you agree?
Correct. Ultimately, if if we have additional development along State Route 18, it will warrant the extension of another line, which will come in 2 miles west of North Baltimore, tying into the existing line. So that would be a viable emergency alternate source if North Baltimore were to have an issue. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, there is an option there, but worst case, the worst way of saying it is, yeah, there's not a.
Correct.
And you can, EPA's pretty cautious about alternate sources or keeping a backup. Like, if you were to try and keep the plant for emergency uses, the maintenance on it would be basically as if you had to keep it up and running at today's standards. And then blending water is an even more difficult issue to try and accomplish, especially because of the issue Flint had. We had to do a separate study just for the turnover time between switching from the water plant here to the water from North Baltimore. Well, actually, when this happens, we'll be filling one of the clear wells clear full with Macomb water, drain the other one, fill it with North Baltimore water, use the Macomb water up, turn the switch, and then immediately start flushing the whole town. Within, hopefully we can get it done in a day, maybe 2 days to get that water out. There's significant concerns from the EPA standpoint about mixing. We did analytics of the water. There shouldn't be any. They're very similar in properties. The water is. There should not be any issues, but they feel that the best alternative is to immediately flush out as much all of the water as possible as you can and switch it over immediately to delay any mixing side effects or to eliminate mixing side effects.
If there were an alkalinity difference, would it be good for the residents to do like a bleed as well during that time?
Sorry, what would be enough? Sorry.
If you get the pretty much dropout is what you're trying to prevent from happening.
Yep.
If you have dropout, should the village be like aware at that point in time when the switch out happens?
Yes.
So they know to have
Yep.
the filters taken off and the whole 9 yards.
Yep. We will be doing significant public notice at that time.
Okay.
The construction timeline alone is a year from once we
Sure.
start break ground, so there'll be public notices to everyone regarding that project. And the day or the week before, 2 weeks before, we'll be doing press releases, probably mailers to everyone, all those fun things, so it won't be unknown to anybody, hopefully, unless you maybe live under a rock. But we'll do our best to make sure everybody knows what's happening. I need to write down. You would like to see.
And just real quick on the plant, just so you guys know if anybody asks, that's what we call a level 3 plant. It's one of your, how would you say it, the highest, one of the higher
operating
requirements of a plant. And so once we go to the North Baltimore, we become a level 1, right? Because we just.
So it might almost be as low as a Class A because it's just a
Yeah,
distribution.
so from a business perspective, I mean, there is some savings because, you know, to pay an a level 3 requires what, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then on the weekend requires somebody, another operator to come in. And so from a business perspective, there'll be a little bit of savings from that.
Correct. That went into part of the considerations of the regional water line versus is the man-hour costs that we actually pay to have the operator. We're going to still maintain that staff. Those people will still be part of the district. They were part of the district prior to the village joining. They just won't have to work mandatory, basically 6 hour a day or 6 day a week job schedule now.
Is there a reasonable date, time set when construction is going to start? How long it will take for construction? When we're actually looking at doing this switchover?
Yep. So the construction timeline schedule, I believe in the project right now is a year. So they will have 1 year from contract signature date to complete the project. So as of right now, if we're bidding, like I said, second quarter puts us in April. Best case scenario, usually there's a month bidding time frame, so that puts us into May. They might not start until July, August.
So there's a good chance that it's going to definitely start this year.
Oh, yeah, I fully intend to break ground on the project this year, yes.
We're already working on easements, getting
The
easements.
easements have been secured.
Secured
Yeah,
and
we're
everything.
ready as far as that's concerned. Like I said, the last hurdles we're going through are the USDA funding requirements.
So start approximately June or July,
Yep, it'll be done June, July next year.
and then 2023, June or July complete.
Yes,
At that point in time,
yes.
the switch gets flipped,
Mhm.
per se,
Yep.
and the reservoirs become what, when, and how, then, at that point in time?
The reservoirs,
The water in the reservoirs, the water, how the water gets to the reservoirs, and the maintenance of the reservoirs.
that's a conversation we have to have. But as of my understanding of the current agreement with the village is, we have rights to the water in the reservoir. That was the agreement. You guys kept the ownership of the reservoirs. We simply were able to fill them and draw from them to maintain the system. So with the no longer using of them for our purposes, they will no longer be drawn down nearly as fast or as much as they will only be at
And the
evaporation.
village will be responsible for maintaining, getting water into that. If we want water in there, we're gonna have to pump it in there.
Yeah, there has not been a decision made yet at the board.
Well, I mean, we wanna think about that.
Yeah.
I
And
fully
you know,
understand.
we've all talked about that before, about.
We have, but that's all it's been, is talk, excuse me, but.
I will add, the station that fills the reservoirs has been completely rehabbed. We rebuilt all the pumps, we got everything up to snuff, we
I
put all the
understand all
controls on it. We are going to, with the abandonment project, reduce the requirements to operate that to a minimal reasonable amount. But we still need to have a conversation with the council and the village and determine how we wanna handle the actual filling. But it will take significantly less, because it's just gonna be evaporation, but the only thing that takes the water out of the reservoir.
But Joe, that. as-
My concern being is, I might be wrong, but I seem to remember, again, we've had this conversation before. It
Mhm.
seems to me it was costing the district close to $40,000 a year to maintain the reservoir for the product they put in there now. Excuse me, I call it, it's,
Algicide. We put
well,
algicide.
I don't think they use algicide anymore, do they use that?
It's a chemical to prevent algae growth in the reservoirs, yes.
Well, it's like what you put in your washing machine, right? Oxifier.
Not being, I'm not an
Well,
operator.
he's an engineer.
I mean, I don't know the chemicals they apply, but yes, we do apply a chemical.
Okay, so
Because
is
if
that
the algae grows-
$40,000 figure out of anywhere close, or did I dream that up, or? did
No, I believe that is the number we had shared with you when you asked how much did we
Okay.
spend.
So,
The question is, do you need to even spend that amount? There may be other chemicals as an option. There may not be a algae issue above what you are willing to accept. I mean, you could stop feeding the chemical and see how bad it gets. It may not get that bad. We don't know.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but since it's not gonna be for potable use anymore, we can go down to like a pond maintenance algicide as opposed to
Yes,
a
correct.
food grade side.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So
So the cost is very
much
much
more
lower.
reasonable to have that conversation.
But there's still, Joe, to your point, there's still, that discussion still has to happen, and that agreement still has to be reached, because I haven't read the contract for a long time. My understanding is they own the water.
well,
We own
I
the
agree, I've tried to read that contract myself, and like you say, it's 49 or 73 pages or whatever it is. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't understand it. And so, like I say, I have a big concern that the village is gonna absorb a $40,000 or $30,000 or $25,000 fee to maintain those reservoirs. So I would, if that's 2 years down the road, we need, at this point in time, I think it's fair for the village to know how much it's gonna cost us, then we need to be prepared for that if that's what has to happen. So, that's all.
And I agree,
It's time to have that
It's
in
time to
writing
have
and
it.
discussed.
And so
Yeah.
Rob may want to start looking over the contract,
Oh,
because
he
it becomes
has,
legal
he
stuff.
looked over.
Over a year ago,
Yeah.
Any other questions or
Was
comments?
there the document, does it include analysis, cost analysis of the plant upgrades versus bringing it over? Showing which was cheaper or more expensive?
Yes, yeah, there's actually some nice graphs in there that show over time the costs, because like I mentioned, there's a big jump in the graph when the full plant has to be replaced. So there's an initial cost to bring the plant up to levels that will handle HABs and the manganese better. But then ultimately, I think it's another 30 years out, there's a jump again to fully replace the plant, because it's unlikely that it'll be out of its useful life at that point. So like I said, I'll share that. You'll be able to.
Just seems like an expensive upgrade. We just built a brand new sanitary treatment facility for just a little bit more,
Mhm.
at over $7 million. Just seems odd that upgrades at an existing facility would be lower than that versus bringing that line over. Does that report have some analysis on that or no?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
it has it all.
It compared the cost of every option. I guess I apologize, I don't know all the details off the
That's
top of my
all right.
head. It's been a couple of years since I looked at it. But,
When did the initial discussions on all of that thing start?
Well, you guys were having those conversations with Finley prior to even joining the district.
You mean as far as the?
Bringing the line for Norfolk.
Oh, that was back when I was still, the line coming over, that was when I was.
Originally, yeah, the village was communicating with Finley, I know for sure. I don't know. that
We
you guys were
looked at, we
negotiating.
actually, before we got into in with the district, we asked Finley, we were in discussion with Finley, and I forget the guy's name at the time, but he wasn't willing to negotiate water rates, and it was the same thing. We would have to put the $4 million at the time out for the line, but then Finley took it over and got all the tap fees and everything else, and again, it wasn't.
This is like 2-3 years ago, probably in that time frame.
So all that communication, like I said, existed at the beginning of the joining, so that had been 17.
Yeah.
There was like I said, prior to the district joining, communications with Finley. Once we got the plant no longer out of compliance, then we sat down and said, all right, what's the ultimate long-term goal of the plant? But it took, I think, all of the 17 and into 18 before we were back to a green license or a good license with the EPA.
And Tyler, the new line coming from North Baltimore was approved by the board while I was still mayor. So I can't, because I know I didn't vote on that. Anyhow, so they had done that analysis a while back. Because it was, what, 2 years ago, you brought it probably to the council the first time.
I think so, yes. When the study was completed, we presented it, to the council.
Any other questions
Sorry we
for
took so
Garrett
long.
or Chuck?
Two more real quick. With the 6.6 million,
Yep.
Will that, any of those, I'm assuming fees be passed on to residents on water bill at all, any way, shape, or form?
No, we're anticipating that being basically a break even between running the plant and paying the debt on the water line.
Okay. Is that over 30, 40 years?
It'd be a 40-year loan. 40?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, do you have any data on the website that we could pull as far as what the new analysis of what the water looks like, when it will be coming in?
I could share the report that we did for the analysis,
Mhm.
for that, that we submitted to the EPA.
And my only reason for that is that, newer houses with PEX is not gonna be a big deal, but if you've got some marginal ones that still have old galvanized, if you've got a really sharp alkaline curve, you might start to get some pitting, and just making sure that a couple of the older residents aren't gonna get any surprises.
Yep. Yeah, no, if you wanna send me your contact
Yeah,
information.
please.
I can send you that directly.
Absolutely.
I'm Garrett.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So there's multiple people on these cards, so, I'm Garrett. One of the other people will probably direct you to you.
I have
Is that
one.
all right?
You guys see our water line?
Thank you for your time, again, appreciate it.
I can put that on tomato, get some mango.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And you said Garrett?
Yep, Garrett, yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
John, you're up next,
All right, very good.
downtown.
Couple, just quick updates slash questions. Are we allowed, or is there any guidance on billboards on the outside of buildings? So I know that there's a couple of buildings that have, advertisements, local businesses and such painted. We're looking more of a revenue stream to actually have a monthly rotational billboard that could be swapped out. It could either be a vinyl, poly, or possibly digital billboard. But again, wanted to make sure before we put any thought or effort or money into something that we knew kind of what the guidelines looked like.
There is some information in our zoning book that I will have to look. I know it talks about billboards in
Okay.
specific. I can check into that.
All right. So we've got a good amount of the stuff inside the place gutted down to brick. We're going to be starting on stucco removal and replacement on the outside of the building next. Is there permitting required for us to block off that alleyway for a day, 2, 3 days while we've got some scaffolding built and a few other odds and ends? So we could yank it clean?
I don't think you need a permit.
Okay,
per
just
se.
just get with.
Let,
Okay.
we'll have to barrel it and mark it. We did a, down here for that other gentleman, we had an alley
Just
that we
close
did.
an alley for, just contact me and
Okay.
the dates, as long as it doesn't drag on for a month or something.
No, if we're more than probably 2 days for a tear down, we'll take a break and let it air dry for a week or two, get a sealant on it, and then probably another 2 or 3 days for reapplication. Super cute. I was hoping to actually get this question before they took off. When we had Puco come out, and I'm not Puco, I'm sorry, 811, do all the lines and markings. I called back up again and actually was trying to get some information from Northwest. They've got main lines marked, but as far as any of the actual lines that go from the main line into the buildings, they've got no data on. So before we start digging in the back there for pouring a new pad and getting some updates done, I'm trying to figure out who I should contact and call to actually find out where the lines are actually set at what depth, and then kind of a dovetail with that, probably looking to upgrade to, a 1-inch or a dual line as opposed to a single 3/4, just based on the water usage and PSI issues that we've currently got.
It's just a 3/4 inch feed to that whole building?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah. Yeah. Now, there's only so many reducers you can use before all of a sudden you just.
I think the gentleman that gave his card to you would be the one
Okay.
in contact with, Garrett.
That works. Very good. I talked with my wife, and we will be contributing an additional $350 into the lighting fund, like I had talked last week. So I've got the check with me. Just let me know whom to make it out to. If there's already been an account set.
There hasn't, yeah.
Okay. Not a problem. So I can do that.
We'll give you names to spell.
Okay. Well, I'll take 50. I'll take a steak.
Yeah, we're gonna work to establish that.
Okay. Very good. And then last question would be, is there any updates as far as the kind of downtown association grant process?
There is.
Okay.
I was going to share that in my little report.
It can wait if you wanted to.
Are you gonna stay?
I'll stay.
Okay.
There you go.
Suspense.
Woohoo. No, that was pretty much long and short of it, but no more head wounds, and we've got all the subfloor torn out down to, oh my gosh.
Good.
Not good. But we're getting there,
You're
so it's good.
closer. Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
No one else marked if they wanted to speak. Did anyone change their mind after the presentation? No? No? Okay. And then, we have no committee reports this meeting. Old business, do we have anything under old? New business? Greg, I know you have The one job description you kind of updated.
Yeah, this one would fall under the old, right?
Or we can, when I go around, you can bring it up under your name.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that's fine.
Either way, it's fine.
Yeah, I'll wait.
I was just looking through some of the job descriptions, a little outdated. The street maintenance worker, employee was outdated. There was still water plant stuff on there. So I just kind of, you have the old copy, and then I made some changes on the new copy.
So far, we have updated the village administrator, the clerk, what we name, utility clerk, and the police chief since I've been here. So I think we're moving along. We will need a motion to approve the new one.
So the new one basically falls under Jared and Billy, right?
And I always think it's a good idea to include all other duties assigned by supervisor, just as a catch-all at the bottom. Something may change and they could come back and say it's not on here, I'm not doing it. But if it's coming as all other duties assigned by supervisor.
So line 21.
Yes. I know from the educational world, it was always on there.
I make a motion to approve the job description for street maintenance employees.
Is there a second? Any further discussion on this? I think it's great that we're finally getting things updated and the water is no longer a part of it. Moving on. Okay, then please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Fazy?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenstermaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clyde?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Council reports. We'll start with you, Tyler. Do you have anything to add for tonight's meeting? Okay. I do have it in mind, but do we need to have a planning and zoning meeting this week?
I'm planning to have it scheduled, I guess, just to,
Okay.
I don't have anything new on the agenda. We're gonna,
And that would be Wednesday at 3:30?
yeah.
Okay. Kevin, can you get that in the courier for me? Because I didn't get it to him. Planning and zoning, 3:30.
I'll talk to you afterwards, but yeah, I'll take it back to him.
Okay. And then finance, you planning on that one?
5:30.
At 5:30? Okay. I will still send them an email, but sometimes.
Yeah, if you talk to me afterwards, I'll make sure I have everything
Okay.
exact.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Tyler?
No.
Okay.
Not today.
Not today? Not tomorrow either, so I go work tomorrow. Beth? Mike?
Yes. One, I would like to schedule for a Parks and Recs meeting for this month on the 21st at 6:30, if that works for everybody.
21st at 6:30?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's, I have a list of things for, as we discussed, for, grants and stuff, looking at, paving and all that good stuff, and fencing and so on and so forth.
Is that the same time as bifocals, I guess.
Yeah, that's Monday, the 21st.
Okay.
One thing that I handed out in front of you guys, a chat transcript from Haley.